Hey everyone, here we are again for a Deep Cut special. And guess who I'm with today? My man Noah from the Chief Economist from ASA. What's up,
How's
Noah?
it going, Richard?
Brother, man, we are here in the Palm Desert in California. Where else can you be here? Outside, beautiful sun.
Can't think of a better way to start one summer.
I know, man, this is a great, and I got to tell you, the CSP conference was amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, just a lively group of folks. Definitely the place to be to learn about the staffing industry.
Got you. So you're ready to deep dive in about you, man, and a little bit of history. Here we go. So first off, I got to ask you, music.
Yeah.
You got the Chili Peppers on, man, so break it down to me.
Well, so it's actually more than just showing California some love. It actually is a reminder of what I'd be doing if I didn't choose to go the numbers route. I actually played guitar for about 14, 15 years.
Nice.
Actually, so when I was first starting out in college, I paid the remaining of my debt just gigging with my band. And came to a point where I could either hack it out on the Boulevard of Broken Dreams, or I could go a little bit of a safer route, and I didn't have too many balls, so I went the econ route.
I love it. Okay, so the band name, you got to give it to me.
Yeah, so we called ourselves Vice, because the way that we were living, it was always between a rock and a hard place.
Nice. How many years were you in the band?
It was about 6 years. We started out playing covers, Guns N' Roses, Cheap Trick, Def Leppard, and we had a couple of talented songwriters in the group, and they soon started to branch out, started to write their own material, and the rest of us, we were able to contribute, and it made for a good couple of years.
So did you travel around the whole country?
No, just the state. This was back when I was still in Chicago. That was where I was born and raised, and about 16 or 17, I ended up moving out to DC for college.
So they say the rocker lifestyle. I mean, you got to break it down, because you probably met some other rock stars back in the day. I mean, what was the feeling being on the stage?
Oh, it's electric, and a lot of it has to do with the audience. If the audience isn't feeling it, the band isn't going to feel it. But it's definitely up to you as the musician to really keep that energy going. Almost like running a podcast, right?
Exactly right.
One of the greatest things though about being in like the band life is just the different sorts of people that you meet. Nobody really starts off thinking that, I'm going to be in a band, I'm going to be doing concerts and stuff like that, but they always have interesting stories about how they fell into it. There was that one record that made them think, that's the kind of music I want to play. Or, they just happen to be around like the right people, and, you just had that chemistry going.
So what was the record, man?
So we didn't end up putting out a record, but we ended up putting together a couple of demos. We shopped it around for a little bit, and just sign of the times, we were a little late for the rock and roll train, and so we found our spot, just gigging around clubs all around Chicago.
Man, I bet you that was so exciting. So favorite cover song when you were on the stage? I mean, there had to be one song that you just loved to jam out to.
Oh yeah, so the one song that we always used to play, this was an encore. We always used to play "Night Train" by Guns N' Roses.
Oh my goodness, love it.
So I am certainly not anybody like John Frusciante or anything like that, but we were a two-guitar band, and so it was myself and my good friend Nikki. We both used to do the Slash and Izzy routine really, really well. We had a kick-ass vocalist, and so together we really got that grungy sort of 90s Guns N' Roses feel.
So I want to challenge you. I got to see some pictures, man. You got to bring some pictures and put them on social media, man.
Well, I think...
Did you have long hair back then, or what?
I had more hair than I have now, that's for sure.
So take it to me. So you're on a stage here as a band, and now you're speaking for all these staffing organizations and stuff like that, all these conferences. What's the vibe from one to the other?
Well, there's actually a lot of similarities, and the first being is that you got to love what you do. Whenever I used to put on a guitar and go out on stage, I was just always ready to go. And I think that that's the same sort of energy that you got to bring to these conferences in the staffing world, because if you're not excited about what you're getting into, then your audience won't be. And so I think one of the things that I often do, even when I was speaking over at CSP yesterday, was just making sure that I knew the material that I was talking about, and also knowing what are the points that are going to get folks excited. So that way you really emphasize that. And it's a little bit easier today than maybe, say, a year or two ago because we're seeing a lot more signs of recovery within the staffing industry. But, regardless about what you're talking about, it needs to be exciting to you and the audience.
You summed it up, them trigger points.
Yeah.
When you see the audience and they're not on their phone and they're just going, wow, and then especially when you get off the stage and they come up to you.
Oh, yeah.
And ask questions, that's like amazing.
Mm-hmm. And it's tough, right? Because, everybody gets excited about music. You try and get somebody excited about the next GDP report. That's a bit of a mountain, but one of the things that I've found to be really helpful in this line of work is just being able to think about how I would approach being able to understand a concept, knowing absolutely nothing about the subject, particularly when it comes to economics, right? So trying to get as untechnical as possible and really being able to distill, say, a complex economic report to what are the key insights I want to know as an owner or a recruiter or just somebody in the staffing space. I think that's the way you really make a connection with the audience and get them excited about what you're talking about.
You got it right. Okay, so from rock band to Economist, break it down. How did you transfer into that?
So it's actually kind of funny. I always knew that I would have to go to school for something. And I was actually flying back from one of the very few gigs that we did out of state. I was fighting with this guy for a window seat. He wanted to keep it closed. I wanted to keep it open.
Oh, boy.
And we ended up getting to talk, right?
Yeah.
And this guy, he was part of the U.S. Foreign Service. He was actually one of the few people that was left in Kuwait during the first Gulf War.
Nice.
When our entire country had to pull out, and we sent the military in. I'm thinking to myself, that's awesome. And I'm playing in a band. I have my sights set on just playing stages, and I thought that was cool. And so I asked this guy, I'm like, how do I do what it is that you do? And he's like, kid, it's easy. Just get a degree in international affairs and join the Foreign Service. Ooh. And so that night, I ended up Googling top 10 schools in IR. Harvard, Yale, Georgetown, George Washington University. I applied to all of them. I didn't get into any of them, with the exception of one.
Okay.
GW. And that's what brought me out to DC. Now, fast forward about 2 years, I had my sights set on joining the Foreign Service.
Yeah.
And actually, my dad, who usually gave me pretty good career advice, was like, Noah, I was looking at the Foreign Service. You know how many people they take every year? 2% of applicants. I was like, I couldn't even get into colleges with 2% acceptances. And so I was like, okay, I need a backup degree. And I liked looking at numbers, being able to kind of think about patterns and create stories from them. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go the economics route. And I completely misunderestimated how much math I really needed to know for that. But that's how I got my start in economics, and went down that path ever since.
Okay, so how did you fall into ASA? Everybody asks it. I don't know if you told many people, but break it down, man.
Yeah, so after college, I was lucky to work for the government, particularly the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Ooh. They're the guys that put out the jobs reports. They're the ones that, are in charge of most of the country's labor data. I did that for about 4 years. And then I took that experience into the trade association world, in which I was working for both banks and credit unions. Now, a lot of these institutions that I was working for, very, very small groups. They don't have necessarily like a large research team. And that, I think, was really what also gave me a lot of encouragement about going down that path, being able to add value where people didn't necessarily have easy access to it. And by the time that ASA was really looking to bolster their research team, even though I'd kind of gone from the labor markets to the overall macro world that's looking at financial markets, geopolitics, things like that, I actually was kind of excited about just getting back to where I started, which is, thinking about what makes work work.
Yeah.
And so I ended up joining ASA in December of 2023, and I haven't looked back.
Dude, you do an amazing job. And I got to tell you what, even though you put good reports out and sometimes you have to say some of the bad stuff, people still love it. They're engaged with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it when it comes to staffing is just being able to have an understanding of the currents that are shaping the business, but that doesn't mean accepting those terms, right? I mean, one of the stats that really just speaks out to me on a daily basis is that, according to ASA research, about 50% of companies are still growing their sales, even in this tight labor market that we're seeing. So, it's about having the right mindset and, knowing that, this is the environment that I have to work in, but not letting that define your business in terms of its outputs.
I love it, man. And you know what I call you? You're like the weatherman in staffing, right?
Only on the days my crystal ball works.
I love it. Okay, so let's just twist here. So, adult beverages. Are you a beer connoisseur, or do you like certain alcohols? What do you like? When you have some free time, what's your beverage of choice?
I guess beer was the last sort of adult beverage that I ever ended up getting into. I'm just more of a drink kind of guy, and I have a large portion of my family is actually Australian, and so I've gone there a couple of times, and most of them, they're just always about Hendrix and tonics.
Ooh.
And that always used to appeal to me. It was something that you could just sip on, not get too crazy over in a short amount of time, and so that's usually what you'll find me drinking.
There it is. Okay, so hobbies. When you're not working on the economy, where's your free time go, man?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you're going to be in my line of work, you have to have a hobby, or otherwise, numbers will drive you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about getting back to the music. So I'll tell you, I always had a goal of mine that if I made it a year or two at ASA, I'd start making my office a little bit more mine. And so I actually have a guitar in there. So, if I'm stuck on, working on a report, or, if I just need a way to decompress, usually I just, flip out the guitar and play a tune or two that I like,
You know what? Now you're going to start playing at these conferences now. I got to promote you. Can I be your new promoter and get you out there to play?
Hey, so my very first, one of my very first conferences with the American Staffing Association, it was Staffing World over in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of our board members, he actually, he runs a school of music. And at the very last minute, I was like, I had no idea you did this, but you ever need an extra axe player, let me know. And he was just like, yeah, we're going to be having people come in and, play certain songs. So I played I Love Rock and Roll for about 50, 60 attendees.
Sweet. I got to tell you, man. I love this, and I got to tell you, at the end of the day, I'm going to think about GNR when I get on a plane today. You know what I mean? Got to love it.
You always have to have a good playlist if you're traveling as much as we do.
You got it, man. Well, hey, thank you so much, Noah, for coming on, brother. Can you tell me about your story, man?
Always a pleasure.
You got it, man. Hey, we'll see you next time in another episode of Deep Cuts. Take care, guys.